Helping your church bring people together from across your church family to explore how you can relevantly share faith across your community. Perhaps your church wants to share the good news of Jesus but isn't sure how. Or perhaps you feel a little detached from your local community and want to help bridge the gap. Maybe you're unsure of how best to use the skills and passions within your church family to share the gospel. Or maybe you're looking for ways for your church to invite people to be a part of its story.
It talks about the wholeness and oneness that we have when we accept God's love for ourselves.
Or could you put some gifts together for local shop assistants? All of these are creative ways to share God's love with the people around you.
Faith Shared has helped churches big and small from across the UK and Ireland bring together their church families to explore how they can best share faith with their communities. Plus, it's totally free, so click the link to start your Faith Shared journey today.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this webinar. This afternoon, we're going to be exploring how our churches can connect with the communities around them by using a resource that we at Church Army have developed called Faith Shared. As I said, it's great to welcome you here. My name's Johnny, and I am the Church Resource Officer for Church Army. Beth, who are you?
Hello, I'm Beth Burris. I am a tutor on the training team as part of Church Army's training, and I'm here in Sheffield. And a big welcome to you wherever you're joining us from. It's great to have you with us. As you're joining us on YouTube, you can, if you sign in, you can make comments and ask questions, and we're going to have a section at the end of our webinar where we'll get round to answering your questions. So if something comes to mind as we're taking you through the content, then do just type it in the comments there and we'll try and get to that towards the end.
Fantastic. As we mentioned, it's great to welcome you all, and we'd love to know where you are connecting to us from. So if you can let us know in the comments and whereabouts you are watching from, we'd just love to see that spread of people. Great to see. We're going to be talking through what is Faith Shared, who is it for, why should you run it, and how do you run it? And we're going to be sharing some of the different pieces of the resource as we go. So that's the plan. We will crack on with that then. Fab. So I'm going to be talking about what is Faith Shared to start with. Now, Faith Shared, as we saw in the little introductory video, is a 6-session course for helping churches think through how they can reach out to their community and also why they should do this. It aims to do this by creating space to reflect on what drew participants to be part of their church, have a think about their everyday lives and where they're already present and where that they can share God's love, and then how as a group they can work together to draw others to be part of their church. Now, the 6 sessions are called, first of all, what is evangelism? And I've got a PowerPoint which is going to pop up here with the titles as well. So what is evangelism? Which is helping the group to think about their own experiences of evangelism, both positive and negative, and how they can engage positively with evangelism. You know, a lot of us have ideas in our mind of what evangelism is and is not, and some of those things are good, some of those things are not so good. And actually we want to take those ideas apart and see what's underneath them and how we can become re-familiar with evangelism and really help it to be a good thing within our churches and for those around us. The second session is called What is Your Story? And now this session borrows from another resource of ours called Faith Pictures. If you haven't seen Faith Pictures, then please check it out as well. It's on the website alongside Faith Shared. But what Faith Pictures tries to do is to help all the people in the group think about their own story of faith and where God has been present and active in their lives. And a lot of us don't really have that time and space to take a step back and reflect on where God has been present in our lives. And so sometimes when we come to talk to other people about faith, it can feel like we don't have things to share about. We don't really have to hand those occasions where God has been present and active to us. So giving people the time to step back and ask those questions and reflect can be a really helpful and positive thing to do. Session 3 asks, where and how can you share your story? And this is a sort of a pause moment in the course a little bit, because often when we think about evangelism and outreach, particularly as a church, what we can do is we can immediately think, well, what are the things that we are going to do together as a group? What are the things that we're going to put on to help bring people into our church? And that's an important thing to do. But actually first, what we want to do is think about the lives that we're living, think about the places that we are, the spaces that we work, the people that we know, the people who we are friends with, those spaces where we are already present, and how we can normally and naturally share our own personal faith in those spaces. And it's not about sort of reeling off a 3-point sermon in 1 minute to make sure that someone wants to suddenly come along to your church next Sunday. But what it is, it's about helping us to be at ease with our faith story and sharing it into spaces where actually people already quite like us. People already have time for us. We already have credibility with people. So let's share some of our experiences. Session 3. So we'll move on to session 4 now, and this is a really, I think session 4 might be my favorite part of the course, which is called Jesus' story. And it's something that we might not have done for a while, but this is a space for us to step back, stop, and think about what it is about Jesus that captivates us. But the way that we do this in this session is by asking quite a blunt question about what problem does Jesus solve. And the reason that we framed it in that sort of language is to try and help us all to sort of think, oh, that's not how I normally think about Jesus. That's not how I normally think about my faith. But by sort of seeing what our reaction is to that question, we can then get to grips with, well, what's underlying my faith? What's at the root of what I think Jesus does? And it's about helping us see it with refreshed eyes. I had a really fascinating conversation with someone about this a while ago. And we asked this question of each other. And we actually both came up with answers that were similar, but with a different perspective. So my friend had an answer that was actually very much about personal faith, about their personal sort of journey in life, about the way that they were living, about the way that it helped them to be. And so Jesus solved problems in their lives to do with, just very, very things that were very personal to them. And absolutely, that's a great answer. For me, it was about taking a step back and saying, actually, Jesus solves all sorts of other problems, and by helping us change our perspective on what's going on in the world, by helping us see what's most important in the world. And so we each had things that Jesus changed, that they were in the same ballpark, but actually different perspectives. So take a step back. Why do we follow Jesus? What does he change about us? And what does that mean for us, what does that mean for the way that we share his story with other people? Session 4 is, how does your church invite people to be part of its story? And this is where we then start to think in a slightly more corporate way about church outreach, about how our churches can reach out. And the framework we use to do this is the 5 marks of mission. Now, I think anyone who's sort of got passing familiarity with the Church of England for the last few years will be quite familiar with the 5 marks of mission, and we go into them in depth in these last 2 sessions. But it's again about helping us to see what we do with fresh eyes, to see what emphasis we do within our church. You know, think through our activities through a week and what do we communicate about what our church is through the different things that we do, and then that last session takes those ideas and says, well, what extra things do we build into our year to give us a framework to inviting people to be part of it? And I know that from my experience of local church work, one of the things that can happen quite quickly is that when we're starting to think about outreach, we sort of can cram a load of things in and we can suddenly become very busy in what we're doing. And we get to the other side of outreach activities and we sort of go, done, can breathe now. And then we sort of don't do anything for another year or 2. But actually, this is about helping us build a sustainable pattern, a repeatable, sustainable pattern over a year, 2 years, to help us really start to build up these contacts, build up these spaces where people can become part of our communities. Beth, is there anything within that you sort of want to pick up on things? I've just talked for an awful lot, so I'm just going to try and be quiet for a moment. But anything that you think, that sounds great?
All of it. Sign me up, I think. Yeah, it looks really good. Thanks for taking us through that, Johnny. I think I'll just draw attention to some of the comments that we've had so far, and just in terms of where people are joining us from. We've got someone in Maidstone, someone in South London, someone in Cambridge, somebody in Manchester. That's Julie. I know Julie. Hi, Julie. And then we've got somebody else in Lancashire. So wonderful. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And I know we've got lots more, so do feel free to tell us where you are in the comments there. But I'd love to see a little bit more about what it looks like, Faith shared. Johnny, will we get to see a video? Is that next?
Absolutely. We're going to go to the video from session 1 with the wonderful Ellie presenting that. So can we have video 1 from Faith shared, please?
What comes to mind when you think about the word evangelism? What images do you associate with it in your mind? It could be experiences that you've had of doing evangelism. It could be evangelism that people have done to you. Or it could just be ideas that you've picked up along the way. But we shouldn't necessarily let our own experience of evangelism get in the way of what it really means. When we're thinking about what evangelism is, it can help us to go back to the word, evangelistes. That's the Greek that we get our word evangelist from. Now, you may have spotted the word angel in the middle of evangelist and evangelistes, and you would be absolutely right to make that connection. An angel is a messenger, and when the news that they bring is from God, that is good news. So an evangelist is someone who shares good news from God. But why should we want to be evangelists? Why should we want to share that good news with people? Well, if we go to the Bible, in Matthew 28, Jesus says to his disciples, "Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." Now, those disciples were being encouraged not to keep the good news to themselves, but to share it with all nations, with the whole world. And that's what we can do as well. Share that good news with our friends, our families, our communities. And in Jewish thought, there's a word for this, shalom. Now, we often translate that to mean peace, but there's a deeper meaning to shalom than that. It talks about the wholeness and oneness that we have when we accept God's love for ourselves. And that's what we can be sharing with people. I want you to think about your friends and your family, your communities, what difference it would make to them to know that wholeness and oneness with God.
That is the wonderful Ellie. So just to finish off this, what is Faith Shared? So that's the first video. Now all the sessions have videos. All the content for all the sessions is available online. We've had the address for the webpage on the bottom already, so churcharmy.org/faith shared. And everything that you need to run the course is available there. It's usable both digital and in person. And everything is downloadable. So there are session notes, the videos are downloadable. There's some other bits which we'll talk about shortly, which are also downloadable. So yeah, all available online.
Fabulous. Thanks, Johnny. We're now going to think a bit about who is Faith Shared for, and in putting it together, who have we kind of had in mind that where could this run, and what would it look like? So Faith Shared is primarily for use by a church leader who has gathered together the key people from across their congregation or congregations. And it's aimed at helping to provide a framework for reflecting on their own personal faith and the people taking part, their personal faith and their faith sharing journey, and then to lead them together into making decisions about how they can reach out as a community to their community. It could be used across a benefice or a team ministry, or perhaps an ecumenical group of churches, or just by one church, perhaps with the leadership team or something like that. And the other thing that we'd want to say about Faith Shared is that it doesn't assume a particular theology or tradition. We hope that it is accessible to people from across the breadth of the church that we are. So I'm going to zoom out slightly and consider why Faith Shared. Why did Johnny and others from across Church Army come up with this? What's the kind of the rationale behind it? And so I think I'll start by saying that when we first say yes to Jesus, whether we are aware of it or not, we're also choosing to say yes to something bigger than ourselves. We're saying yes to being part of what God is doing in the world. And a key part of what God is doing, as we know, is the church, his body. We at Church Army want to help churches to reflect on and plan for outreach which is effective and sustainable, and which offers others the chance to say yes to Jesus and yes to becoming part of his people in the world. Having been involved in church and church work for many, many years, Church Army understand the challenges that can arise when putting together plans for outreach and evangelism. And so we wanted to help to create a framework that can support churches in both motivating and planning for these things, and to encourage us that we all have an important part to play in our outreach and in doing mission and evangelism in our communities and amongst those who we love who are around us. So hopefully that gives a bit of a picture of who it's for and why we did it. Keep writing your questions and comments on the comments there, and we'll get to those in a second. But I think we're just going to show you a little bit about how to access it on the website. So I'll just get ready for that here. There we go. Johnny, do you want to talk us through, and I'll do some scrolling here.
Absolutely. So if you'll see across the top there that we've got 3 resources that we're got on our webpage at the moment. So Faith Pictures, which I mentioned before, which is for small groups and for individuals to think through their story of faith. Faith Shared, which is obviously what we're exploring today. Faith Empowered, which if you want to hear more about, then please go to the webpage, sign up, on there. We will be updating bits and pieces of that as we go, but that's for helping train in a bit more depth within evangelism. But anyway, Faith Shared, I will focus on that for the time being. If you go to Faith Shared, Beth, if you could just scroll down, you'll see that we've got this is the homepage, this is the overview. And if we just scroll down a little bit further, you'll see that there is a brief overview of the session structure. And I'm just going to talk about that briefly before we then look at how that fits into one of the sessions. So there are 4 parts to each session within Faith Shared: introducing, expanding, exploring, and praying. Now, introducing is a space for the group to think about what they already know about the subject. So, for example, in session 1, that is thinking about their own experiences of evangelism, both positive and negative, and what that leads them to think about evangelism and the way they approach it. We then have expanding, which is the 3 to 4 minute video. So we showed you the example of the first one, 3 to 4 minute video covering key information and ideas for the session. And this is where we sort of take what we think most people know about a subject and then try and give some new knowledge about that area. So, for example, taking apart evangelism and actually saying evangelism is about sharing good news, and it's about sharing oneness and helping people discover oneness with God. And exploring is then digging deeper into the ideas covered in that video, so that we are then trying to help the group to sort of see what this means for them in their own context. How does this change the way they approach things? How does this change the way they think about things? And then we move into praying. And for this, we've provided some audio reflections to help the group pray through and reflect on what they've covered. And again, there's a sort of a repeated pattern to those prayers as well, where it's thinking about the past, present, and future of their experiences and what they know about these things, and really sort of handing those things over to God and saying, as I go into my week this week, help me take these ideas, help me take these feelings and thoughts, and really find a place to express them through my week. So if we go to session 1, I'll just sort of, we'll see where that is in action a little bit more.
Okay, so this is the session 1 page.
Yep.
What is evangelism?
Yeah, so you see we've got, yeah. And then within introducing, we've got a couple of statements for people to respond to about what is evangelism and whether they agree or disagree, somewhat disagree, really trying to help people to identify their own thoughts and feelings. And so here we have the list of statements. So, you know, the first one there, evangelism is pushing my faith on others, which is something we hear quite a lot from certain segments within society, or, you know, evangelism about our actions more than our words. You know, I remember growing up as in a youth group, you had I think every youth group had that poster with the misquote from St. Augustine, you know, preach the gospel, and if you have to use words. It's like, well, okay, there's value in that, but also we do kind of need to use words. So, you know, trying to help people take apart their existing thoughts on this and really sort of what they think about it. Then we scroll down a little bit further. You'll see again the Ellie there with her thoughts on evangelism, and then group activities. You know, thinking a bit more about evangelism, the E word, and how we can, I suppose, to an extent, redeem evangelism within our church, redeem the idea of evangelism, because it's a hugely important thing. If we think that we are living, if we're choosing to follow a way of life, if we're choosing to say Jesus's way is the best way, then it's got to be worth us sharing that with the world around us, and that is part of evangelism. And if you just scroll down a little bit further, you'll see how we're sort of taking apart some of the preaching within the New Testament, the way that the apostles preached and the way that they shared what they had experienced with the world. And then at the bottom there is that audio reflection, and those are some really lovely space. They create a really lovely space to stop and think, but also be challenged by what we are doing. You know, I often find that within prayer is when these ideas become real, these ideas become embedded and sort of feel very poked and prodded by God. Actually, no, these are the ways. It's great for you to think about these things, but are you going to do something with it? Are you going to do something within it? And actually, this is what we've really tried to do within this audio reflection is create space for us to just sit back and listen to what God is saying to us through these different pieces. Each session is designed to last around an hour, and you'll see that there is one within each of these. Within each of the sessions, there is one activity per section. And the idea of that is to really give you space and time to explore what's going on in there. We didn't want to pack these resources full of different activities and full of different ways. There's different ways to engage with it, but not overpack this resource so that, you know, you might be thinking, oh, I need to cut something out. I need to lose something from this. Actually, we wanted to make this quite precise so that there is, there's real scope there for group learning, for people to really reflect on what one another is saying, to learn from one another, and to just hopefully see these things in a slightly different light. That's what we're going.
Yeah. And so what's here? We have got a session sheet. These look like they're available for download.
Yes, so all parts of this are available for download. So the session sheet is the notes that are also on the webpage. So you can run it entirely digitally just through, you know, this. These web pages have been designed with mobile use in mind, so that you can have these available. You can just have the web page open on your phone and scroll through that as you are leading the session. If you would prefer to have the session sheets, you can download the session sheets and use those offline. And the video and the audio. So the audio is the prayers and the video is the expanding part of the course. We've made those available for download for two reasons. One is so that they are usable entirely offline, so that you can take this into a space where there is no internet, because such places still exist, I'm reliably informed, and run it there. Or you can to make sure that you're not taking up masses of bandwidth when you're running this online. So, for example, if you're running this course on Zoom and you're wanting to share the video, actually having a video streaming from a website alongside Zoom running can make everything very slow, and it means that the video doesn't work great, the call doesn't work great. So having this available to download and use online is preferable.
Sounds great. Sounds great. And so all of the sessions are here on this same page. Yeah, there we go. Sessions 2, 3. And then it says sign up to unlock these sessions. That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we wanted to sign up, what information would that ask us for? Shall I click it?
Yep, if you click on that, that'll show you what we need to do.
Oh, great. Okay. So just create an email address and a username. Fabulous.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Absolutely. So that's sort of everything we wanted to talk about with the resource to start with. We are going to have a look at some questions in a moment as well. So Beth, you're going to throw questions out and I'm going to answer them.
Yeah. Well, the first one on there, someone commenting that it's great that it is downloadable because there's no Wi-Fi in their church setting and mobile reception isn't reliable. So yes, we are able to, you can download everything beforehand when you know it's stable, and then you can run it from wherever.
Absolutely. I think everyone makes that mistake once of trying to run, like I've done it in person, of youth session of like, oh, I'll just stream it live from YouTube and put it on the screen, and then it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I am never doing this ever again. We want to avoid that as much as possible. So
yeah, that sounds good. There's a question here from Alistair saying, how long does each of the 6 sessions last? I think you said an hour, Johnny. Is it flexible?
It is flexible. It depends on how much chatting you have in each. Obviously, you can extend that and have a lot of extra time to chat. If you actually feel you're quite pushed for time, you want to squeeze it into a bit less time, you could probably squeeze it into 45, 50 minutes, but less than that, and it starts to feel very rushed.
Okay. Oh, that sounds good. I think we can hear someone who wants to join in the background there. Johnny, would that be your 1-year-old?
That is my 1-year-old. He yes, he's just woken up from his nap and he's just lying in bed singing, which is lovely. But yeah,
he wants to share his faith. Clearly, he wants to join in with us. Question here from David. What's a good number of people for a group? What would you recommend?
It depends a little bit. I would say that 8 is probably a good number because of the nature of drawing people together to reflect within a church context, and particularly sort of people who are key to putting things on within the church. But if you wanted to run it for larger groups, then you've just got to start thinking about how you share ideas between groups. Because 8 people, you can split into 2 groups of 4, or you can share as an 8, and it's not too unwieldy. But more than that, and you start to it gets a bit tricky to share meaningfully. So
yeah, okay, sounds good. And a question I thought of was, could you run it for your kind of small group leaders or house groups, cell groups, whatever your groups are called? Would that work if you gathered the leaders and ran it with them?
Absolutely, because while this is sort of putting front and center the language of church, actually we know that God works through all sorts of gatherings of his people, all sorts of and so if a small group wants to go through this, then they can, as long as they're open to the idea of drawing more people into their small group, more people into that space, then actually this allows them space to think through those things in that way. So running it for small group leaders with the intention of them then running this for their small groups could be a really fantastic way of engaging with it.
Yeah, great. We've got another comment here. Do we think this would work with a variety of different ages in the same group? So teenagers with OAPs, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're, again, it's about making sure that it sounds like a not a nice way to put this, but that groups are managed well, and that you don't, that everyone is able to, or everyone feels comfortable sharing in that space, that everyone feels able to put their ideas out there. There's nothing in the course that means that it's not appropriate for all ages. It's just about that managing what goes on in the groups and how people share what they're talking about centrally.
Great, fabulous. There's still a minute or two if anyone watching wants to write any more questions or comments there. Something that I was thinking, Johnny, is that people might be watching who think that this sounds brilliant, but aren't really sure who Church Army are. So I might just quickly explain a bit about Church Army. We are a community of Anglican evangelists. We've been around since 1882, and we train evangelists who work across the UK and Ireland, sharing our faith through words and action. And we want everyone everywhere to hear the good news and to be able to respond to Jesus where they are. So if you want to find out more about Church Army, then do have a look on our website. Our website there, or handy link has come up on the bottom of the page. Something that I was thinking hearing you speak earlier, Johnny, was just how this is really great because it's not providing a kind of mission plan, an outreach plan, kind of suggesting here's an outreach plan, go and run it. Because actually, wherever you're watching from, wherever you're joining in, you're the expert in your context. You know your town, your village, your parish so well. You know what will work and what your people need there and how you can reach out to them. And by gathering a group of people and thinking, just going through these prompts that we provide to think about mission and evangelism, and we'll be praying for you as you do that, that you develop an outreach plan and some ideas for mission and evangelism that are just suited just right for where you are, which is why we don't provide a kind of one size fits all idea
Yeah.
So I really like that. I think that's
Absolutely. I think the closest we get to that is exploring things through the 5 marks of mission and trying to encourage churches to sort of tick off as many 5 marks through the year as they're going. Because, actually, one of the things that we know is that some churches find certain of the marks much easier than others to engage with. And actually, that's great, but we don't want to sit and be comfortable in what we are already doing. We want to be challenged by God in what we can do more. And so how can we build on these things that we already do and we already find easy and step into those places where we find it more challenging, knowing that actually we've got something of value, of worth, of goodness, of just that's worth sharing more than anything else in the world.
Brilliant. I think that we haven't got any more questions come in, but I've realised we haven't talked about cost. How much does it cost to run, Johnny? Is there a cost to run it?
Absolutely nothing. All the resources entirely free and available online. There we go. The link is there. So please go to that, download all the resource, use it, and we'd love to hear stories of how it's being used, where it's being used, and what things have changed because of it. We'd love to hear those sort of things, and it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah. How would people get in touch with us to share those stories? Is it on our social media feeds there, or?
They can go through all our various social media feeds, or actually, if you feel that you don't want to share via social media, but you want to share in a slightly more direct way, then please feel free to email. So there we go. There's my email address, johnny.price@churcharmy.org. Love to hear from you. And actually, if you've got questions about the resource as well, then drop me an email and I will get back to you with an answer.
Brilliant. We've had some comments coming in saying that it sounds exciting. People hoping to use it in their contexts in various groups that they're involved in. So thanks for watching, everyone. I think we're going to finish just with that first video again, just a reminder of what Faith Shared is all about. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. It's been great to have you with us, and blessings on the rest of your day.
Is a 6-session course from Church Army helping your church bring people together from across your church family to explore how you can relevantly share faith across your community. Perhaps your church wants to share the good news of Jesus but isn't sure how. Or perhaps you feel a little detached from your local community and want to help bridge the gap. Maybe you're unsure of how best to use the skills and passions within your church family to share the gospel. Or maybe you're looking for ways for your church to invite people to be a part of its story.
It talks about the wholeness and oneness that we have when we accept God's love for ourselves.
Or could you put some gifts together for local shop assistants? All of these are creative ways to share God's love with the people around you.
Faith Shared has helped churches big and small from across the UK and Ireland bring together their church families to explore how they can best share faith with their communities. Plus, it's totally free, so click the link to start your Faith Shared journey today.